Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and Alhamdulillah, welcome back to Great Words of the Muslim World with Yang Berbahagia Dr. Muhammad Husni, Muhammad Amin, and also we welcome him with us here today at the studio. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Dr. Husni.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Hajamas.
Yeah, thank you for being with us today, Doctor.
Yes, it is good to be welcome again here
Yeah.
as the guest.
Yeah, as the guest, usually as the host, and
Yes.
today he's the guest for today's segment, and he's a fellow for IKIM Center for Science and Environment Studies at IKIM. And today, as for today, we will discuss on Nasihat Al-Muluk, Al-Ghazali's Council for Rulers. And for your information, Atibr al-Masbuk fi Nasihatil Muluk, or the melted ingots in the Council for Rulers, is a work by Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali in the genre of the Mirror for Princess. Princess. What could you tell Dr. Husni about this genre, and are there many works such as the Nasihatul Muluk
Right.
over there?
Yeah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And thank you again, Haja Maslina, for inviting me to be the guest in this episode of the Great Works of the Muslim World. So today we're going to talk about Atibrul Masbu' fi Nasihatul Muluk, or shortened as Nasihatul Muluk. Which is a work which you have mentioned, the melted ingot in the Council for Rulers. And so this genre, Mirror for Princess, it is something which the Muslims learned to do after the advent of Islam, when they were expanding. And it is somehow a tradition that existed prior to Islam in the Greek world and also in the Persian world. So in the Greek world, for example, you find works such as Secreta Secretorum, the Secret of Secrets, which purportedly were a series of letters written by Aristotle to the Macedonian Vasilias, or king Alexander of Macedon, whom we also know as Alexander the Great. Right? And this particular work has also been translated into Arabic. I'm not sure if it was translated by either Al-Kindi or Al-Farabi, but the Arabic version of this work existed as Sirrul Asrar, Secret of Secrets, which later on we see the name was conveniently borrowed or appropriated by the later scholars such as the great Sufi Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jalaini. But then again, he only merely borrowed the title Sirrul Asrar to be a work on tasawwuf. But this tradition of writing, letters to rulers have been established since time immemorial, which is because in Islam there's understanding that, I think it was by Imam Ghazali also, he mentioned that the rulers rule the people, but it is the scholars that rule the rulers. So when we think about this word rakyat dalam bahasa Melayu in Malay language means the people. It means also those who are ruled, and the one who is ruling them is called ra'in, or it means ruler. And this is also reflected in the hadith of the Holy Prophet, kullukum ra'in wa kullukum mas'ulin an ra'iyatihi. Every one of you is a shepherd. Ra'in means shepherd, and every shepherd will be held responsible over what he shepherds. Okay, so So when Islam came, and then when the empire expanded, since the time of the Bani Umayyah and also Bani Abbasiyah, and then we understand that when the Abbasid, they overthrew the Umayyads, they got some help
Yeah.
from what was called the Mawali, and these had been the people from among the non-Arabs, the Persians, largely the Persians. That's when they expanded to Iraq, Iran.
Yeah.
Those were formerly the Persianate, from the Persianate Empire. So they became Muslims. You can say that they converted Islam in order to avoid persecution. You can say that they converted to Islam to avoid paying jizya. Whatever it is, it's their own, each to their own intention. But one of the things that is good about Islam is that in this hadith in Sunan Ibn Majah, he says that the Prophet said that al-hikmah dalatul mu'min aynama wajadaha fahuwa ahaqqu biha. And so wisdom, and we just recently concluded a 3-day course on thinking with wisdom here at IKIM. So I thought it would be nice to mention about this also in our program. So wisdom is the lost property of the believer, and wherever he finds it, he has the most right to it. And in another matan, it says that he takes it. Right. So it doesn't matter whether it comes from the Greek world or the Persian world or even the Hindu world, but as long as it is wisdom, and this is recognizable from the truth of the Quran, because God says that in the Quran, God says that He never punished people without sending a prophet to warn them. So we have to believe in the early prophets also, that God have sent throughout the history of man to guide people to the path of God. So some of this wisdom, Imam Ghazali says in his other book, Munqidh min ad-Dalal, that this wisdom, the sages that we hear coming from the Greek world, from the Persian world, these are not necessarily prophet, but because the wisdom of the early prophets that had been hanging around, I mean, they had been in the atmosphere, people talked about it, and these are remnants of their teachings. So these sages, these wise men, they took it and mixed it with their own reasoning, and then they begin to spread it, and they become renowned because of it, because of these wisdoms. So by the truth of the Quran, we are urged to find, and also from the Prophet also, we are urged to find this wisdom, and we have the most right to it. We can take it. So with regards to mirror for princes, like I said before, this tradition it predated Islam, and even after Islam, we can find things like after Sirul Asrar, we can find works such as by Firdausi, who was a Persian, in his book Shahnameh, or in Iranian Shahnameh. So and also when the Abbasid overthrew the Umayyads, and then the Umayyads retreated and established their own center of power in Cordoba, in what we know as the Muslim Spain. You have writers such as Ibn Abdul Rabbih, Ibn Abdul Ibn Rabbih, meaning the servant of his Lord. In 940, he wrote a mirror for princes called Al-Aqd al-Farid, or what we can translate as the unique necklace. So these are also this has been written fully in Persian, but later translated into Arabic.
Mhm.
And I believe it has also been translated into English. And maybe in the near future, or not in the too distant future, we'll get to talk about this work.
Mhm.
But it did also contain his vast anthology of belles lettres. I mean, all the literature
Mhm.
pertaining to rulership, and this kind of work almost always contain anecdotes and also counsels like it has been contained in Sirul Asrar,
Mhm.
what Aristotle had done for Alexander, and also in the 11th century, during the Buyid rule of Baghdad. This is the time when uh, the Abbasid Caliph had begun to lose power, because the Buyid, I mean, there's a sect of Shi'is.
Mhm.
They have taken over Baghdad, but they couldn't place themselves as caliph.
Mhm.
People still look up to the Abbasids
Yeah.
as the legitimate rulers.
Mhm.
So what did they do? They struck a bargain with the Abbasid ruler. The Abbasids will be continue to be recognized as caliphs,
Mhm.
while government is largely run by the Buyids.
Mhm.
So that is their attempt to gain some legitimacy.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, that was the time when Imam Abul Hasan al-Mawardi lived, and he died in 1058, but he produced he realized the situation
Mhm.
of the time, when how could legitimacy be challenged. It
Mhm.
means that people have begun to lose their understanding
Yeah.
in religion with regards to ruling a nation, and
Mhm.
also governing a country. So I think that's why one of the reasons why he wrote that book, Al-Ahkam As-Sultaniyah,
Mhm.
uh, which has been translated as the ordinances of the government. And I think later on we can talk about this book.
Yeah.
And this book contains a, a great exposition of the Islamic constitutional law.
Mhm.
If people were to say that uh, the Medinan Charter was the first written Muslim constitution,
Mhm.
and it has become the template for future all and kind of law of constitution. Uh, so Al Ahkam Al Sultaniyah, I think, is the prototype for working manual of a government.
Mhm.
Okay, and it also and Mawardi also, he wrote books of advice for rulers, and according to the translator of Nasihatul Muluk, uh, FRC Begley, who translated Nasihatul Muluk as Counsel for Kings.
Mhm.
He said that these books of advice by Al Mawardi have not yet been fully studied by modern scholars, but they also appear to resemble others. By others, he meant as Mirror of Princes
Mhm.
genre of books, and he said that even then, uh, after Mawardi, we will see that there are many more type of
Yeah.
Mirror for Princess genres
Mhm.
being written, and
Mhm.
one of it is Nasihatul Muluk. But of course, we can talk about that, and with regards to Nasihatul Muluk as a genre for Mirror for Princess, this is a well-known work by Imam Ghazali in Persian,
Mhm.
and there are also a few of other of his works written in Persian. Uh, for example, Kimya As-Sa'adah, which was Kimya As-Sa'adat, if the in
Mhm.
the original Persian, which uh, which was later translated into Arabic also.
Yeah.
But this work, the contents and organization of Nasihatul Muluk, we can say that it follows closely that of Kimia. If Kimia, Saada, the alchemy of happiness is more directed towards the Muslim, uh, population in general. Nasihatul Muluk follows the same structure, but he caters it more towards the rulers, and it was originally written for the reigning Seljuk Sultan of the time. If we have the caliph, this was after the Seljuk and Tughril back, they have ousted the Buyid rulers from Baghdad and took over Baghdad and returned it to Abbasid rule, and they received legitimation for that. So that time was the time of Imam Ghazali when he was at the height of his career, and FRC vaguely seemed to think that Nasihatul Muluk was written at 1111, the year in which Imam Ghazali passed away. But to do that, well, we know that by 1105, his career took a turn because he was as the professor at the Madrasah Nizamiyah, a conglomerate of colleges which Nizamul Muluk placed him in charge of. We knew that by that time, 1106, his career was having a turning point because suddenly he suffered how shall we say, an inner crisis, because suddenly he realized all that he preached, he's not doing it. All the glamour he has enjoyed, all the perks and privileges, but it appeared to him that it dawned upon him that he's not preaching, he's not doing what he preaches to unto others, and it become because the knowledge is so real to him. The admonishment of the Quran became so real to him that he realized that he was in danger of going to hell, of using religion for his personal gain, using religion to become famous, and to feed into the ego of defeating and vanquishing his opponents in debates. So it will not do for him, it will not suffice for him. So he went into seclusion. And by a few years later, when he finished his uzlah, I mean his seclusion, he is a changed person, and he no longer enjoys. In fact, he warned against this using religion for personal gain, and that's how he came about, with the Ihya Ulumuddin, to revive the religious sciences, to remind people what is actually religion is supposed to make you good, is supposed to help you exercise spiritually, so that you can cleanse your soul, cleanse your heart, and later when you realize that you are heading towards death and this afterlife, you are going to meet God with sound heart. uh, and and so this couldn't have been, Nasihatul Muluk couldn't have been written towards the end of his life. It would not serve that purpose. Rather, I'm inclined to believe that, as George Hurani writes in his about his chronology of Imam Ghazali's writing, he stated that it could be not later than not later than 1106, but not before 1105. So there we can zoom in what year actually the work was written, and we know that at the height of his career he was advising the Nizamul Muluk and also Sultan Malik Shah, and this was originally in Persian, but it was translated later by the Amir of Mosul, Qutbuddin Qaymaz, in the year 1199. Qutbuddin Qaymaz, sorry, he died at 1199, but presumably this was translated before 1190. So if we look into the history, that's the time when Sultan Salahuddin Al Ayyubi
Mhm.
had just liberated Jerusalem, Baitul Maqdis, from the Crusaders. So
Mhm.
that's a little bit about this genre, and the other works such as Nasihatul Muluk, and a little bit about Nasihatul Muluk itself.
Yeah. When you mentioned about the turning point, was it when and why did Imam Al Ghazali compose this book?
Yeah. So I think it has got to do with the fact that that time he was writing Tahafatul Falasifa, and
Mhm.
in the Muqaddimah, as we've discussed earlier, I think one of the episodes of Great Works of the Muslim World,
Yeah.
uh, the reason why he wrote Tahafatul Falasifa was because remember in the 9th century, Muslims were translating many of these works from the Greek world, from the
Yeah.
Persian world. People like Himsi al-Himsi, and also Hunayn ibn Ishaq, they had been doing this translation work for Khalifah al-Ma'mun, and they were employed by other figures, important figures of the translation movement, such as Banu Musa and Al-Kindi.
Mhm.
And it's only natural to think that this work once they are translated, they are widely read, or at least read by the elite during that time, the aristocrats, people who are rich, and people who are the okala, the intellectuals of that time. And one of the things that Ghazali raised in Tahaful Falasifa was that the reason he want to refute was because some of these followers of philosophers among Muslims, Ibn Sina,
Mm.
Al-Kindi, Al-Farabi, some of their followers have, well, we can say that these philosophers, such as Ibn Sina and Al-Farabi, what they wrote,
Mhm.
for example, uh, Al-Farabi, he wrote this Madidatul Fadilah. He didn't mean that the virtuous city will be the virtual city that Imam Malik was talking about when he says Ara Amal Al Madinah.
Mhm.
Certainly not the city of the Holy Prophet Medina that we know today,
Yeah.
but he was talking about the polis, the city that the Greek philosophers were idealizing and envisioning, because later on we found out that Ibn Rushd, he said that the city, the polis, is actually the aggregate of its people.
Mhm.
Okay, so it depends on the success of city. Very much depend on the kind of people that you have in the city.
Yeah.
If you have so many people in the city who are greedy, who are unethical, their souls, they
Mhm.
are always the animal soul are always fighting against their intellectual soul, and they are always and it's reflected in their actions
Mhm.
and their doings. So if you have that kind of people in the city, then the city will become really a horrible place to live
Yeah.
in, and the rulers become this really irascible person,
Mhm.
and he will become a conquering
Yeah.
person, and it will trigger wars,
Mhm.
and corruption will be rampant. The city will also, to when you carry that to the extreme, it will become the city will become something that which destroys itself from
Yeah.
inside.
Mhm.
All right. And but Ibn Rushd says also, if the soul has been refined, and however that you want to refine it, you want to refine it with philosophy, you want to refine it with religion, but once the soul, the intellect has taken over control of the animal soul, then
Mhm.
everybody is like that.
Yeah.
They live in harmony in the city,
Mhm.
they follow the laws, you have order, so the city becomes a really virtuous city. That's what they meant. But later on, the followers of the philosophers, they take it seriously. But probably this philosopher have been presenting the idea as an academics exercise. Look,
Yeah.
okay, he says we read this translated works,
Yeah.
and we want to summarize it,
Mhm.
and it is what it is.
Yeah.
But these followers, they take it upon themselves to realize some of this. They had taken it as an ideology.
Mhm.
So and some of them have become really, really taken by the ideas inside there, the Greek ideas that the universe is eternal. You don't have a beginning and you don't have an end. The idea that God only knows universal and not particulars, meaning God doesn't know that God doesn't know you and me, Hajah Maslina.
Yes.
He knows only a concept of man, or concept of there's a female human being, and there's man, there's a male human being. He doesn't know exactly who these people are. Or the thirdly is that there's no bodily resurrection. Therefore, there's no consequences in whatever you do.
Yeah.
Right? So these people, they become to take these ideas very seriously, and they practice it in daily lives. So what happened is they become very, very much like the Greco-Roman people. They begin to surrender themselves to their animal passions. They become to enjoy life in the Epicurean sense. And they begin to do things which the Sharia prohibits, because what is life but enjoyment for them. Okay? So that's why Imam Ghazali wrote the Tahaful Falasifa, to refute these ideas, to show them the falsity of these ideas, how erroneous they were. So as to, when you defeat the idea at the realm of the intellectual realm, then people begin to see that it is false. Then people will see the next what is the truth, the truth as espoused in the religion. So the situation that time can be the contributing factors why the Muslims had lost Baitul Maqdis back in 1087. Because the Muslims had been fighting among themselves. They failed to defend Muslim territories because they had been weakened, or at least their elites have been weakened by these ideas. They had become too materialistic, too territorial, and they forget that the bigger picture of what it is to implement Islam at their level. As Muslim leaders, they have to take care of the well-being of the Muslims. Okay. So because of that, Imam Ghazali wrote the Nasihatul Muluk, and in the introduction by Afarsi Bailey, he says that it is a compilation of letters which he sent to these Seljuk sultans, reminding them of the responsibility that they have towards Islam and the Muslims, and the punishment that awaits these rulers in the hereafter if they neglect this responsibility, and they act in a very irresponsible manner, that they just frolic around, they enjoy life so much, they fight among each other. So Imam Ghazali, I think in the other books, in Qima Sa'adah, he said that the occupation of animals is eating, drinking, having intercourse, and then sleep, and then fighting among each other. So if you are one of the animals, go do these things. He said that. But if you are like the angels, they pray, they
follow the rules.
Yeah, and then they are also constantly in prayer and making remembrance of God. Then if you are of the angel type, then you do this sort of things, right? So the Nasihatul Muluk, why did Imam Ghazali write? Ultimately, is because of that. He wants to remind the others, and I think there's also a hadith says that an-nasu ala dini mulukihim. People in general, they follow the religion of the rulers. So if the rulers, we say that the rulers are the mirror of the people, because of this ra'in and ra'iyah relation. So if the rulers, if the people, they are the kind that they don't care about religion, they are immoral people, then it will be raised among them a ruler who is represents them. And this ruler will be tyrannical, they will be violent, they will be corrupt. So Imam Ghazali, as an alim, he was writing to the rulers. At the same time, he was teaching the people Ihya Ulumuddin. teaching people to revive religion, and he sent Nasihatul Muluk to the Seljuk rulers, reminding them of their responsibilities, reminding them of the creed and their in the Sharia. So we see how Imam Ghazali as a scholar, as a thinker, he is also a mujaddid. He is the one who revives and renew the religion. Quite rightly so said by Imam Jalaluddin Asyuti. So I think that is covers what the reason for the writing of this book.
The way you describe about this book and also related books is quite interesting.
Yeah.
So perhaps you could tell us about the chapters in the books, Dr. Husni.
Sure, certainly, Hajah Maslina. So this book has two parts to it. And part one, it contains, like I said, it is written for the Seljuk Sultan, and primarily, I believe so, and FRC Bailey also stated in his introduction that it was written for Sultan Malik Shah. And the first part contains principles of creed in Aqidah. What the ruler should believe. The ruler should believe that God has made two class of people in this world to rule mankind, the rulers and the scholars, right? So the rulers, if they realize this, then they must realize what a huge trust it is that has been thrust upon them. So, and they are chosen by God to carry out this important, this onerous responsibility. And every day, Hajah Maslina, we are reminded of this, because we ourselves, we are a ruler, because we are kind of ruler, because the least thing that we rule is our own self, our own nafs, right? And God placed us in charge of our kingdom, which is our body. We have to take care of it, and we have to make sure that things are orderly. And also every morning when we wake up, we pray our subuh prayer. We recite in our doa kunut, tuzillu man tasha wa tu'izzu man tasha wa tuzillu man tasha biyadikal khair. We say that God is the one. I mean, this verse is related also, kulillahumma malikal mulki tu'til mulka man tasha wa tu'izzu man tasha wa tuzillu man tasha. See that God is the holder of sovereignty. He gives it to whomever he wishes, and he raises whomever he pleases, and he debases whomever he pleases. So it tells about how authority, rulership, is a temporal thing. It's a temporary thing. That's why, the Westerners, when they come to a problem when they try to periodize time, because for them, based on the scientific evidence, the galaxy, the universe has been built for billions of years, and it will be billions of years after we have perished, after the human species has gone extinct. It will be still billions of years before the big crunch. They have so for them, that is an eternity of time for them, but it means that they also still believe in what the ancient Greeks believed, that the universe is eternal. And even then, even after big crunch, you will have another big bang. You will have another run of the universe for billions of years, and this has been going for infinitum. So because of that, they have a trouble in trying to periodize time. You have prehistory, you have an ancient antiquity, and then you enter into the dark age or the middle age, and then you have the enlightenment, renaissance, then modern time, and then now we're coming into postmodern time. And then after this, we don't know what kind of modernity that they're going to come up with, right? They will run into problem. But for we Muslims, that has not been our problem, because we know that the world is temporary. Even in history, we don't have this periodization. We have what we call dawlah, or what they translate as dynasty, because every ruler knows that whenever the power is trusted into them, that is a trust, and it's only for temporary. They're not going to live forever. There'll come upon a time when they have to give back that trust or hand it over to some other people. So daulah, from the word dawala, it means a cycle, really, a turning uh, point, really. So that forms what so this has been part of Ghazali's reminders that when the ruler has this trust given upon them, they've been burdened by this, then they have to carry it, and it's part of the aqidah. They have been chosen by God to carry out the orders and ordinances of the religion. And proceeding from that, then he begins to talk about roots of faith, branches of the tree of faith. So iman is metaphorically described like a tree. If in a tree, you need to fertilize it, you need to fertilize the ground, you need to water it. So then he says, branches of the tree of faith and the two springs which water the tree of faith. But because if iman is likened to a tree, and a tree cannot live without water, without nutrients, if you fail to water your plants, and it will die. So he reminds the rulers of the kind of water that they must use, the amal, the deeds that must use in order to continually feed the tree of iman in their heart. And after finishing that comes the second part of it, part 2. And in this part there are 7 chapters. And the first one is the qualities of kings. Then he outlines what are the qualities required in the character and the person of the king. And then he talks about chapter 2 is on the wazirate and the character of wazir. Herein he mentions what Mawardi also mentioned is in Ahkam al-Sultaniyah, the origin of this word wazir. Of today we call them ministers, and the head of wazir, the chief of all the wazir, is the prime minister. And so during that time he says that this word is a Khalifah Mu'rabah. Khalifah Mu'rabah min Fars. It is a Persian word that has been Arabized, but it also has roots even in the Quran. You know, it is the word wazir. It is also used in the Quran. If you remember the chapter when Allah appointed Nabi Musa to become appointed him as the prophet, and then he made the prayer to Allah to make his brother or his cousin Harun as his wazir. So then thereupon God appointed Nabi Harun to assist Nabi Musa in guiding Bani Israel. So they realized that a ruler, when the time of the Prophet and the Khulafa ar-Rashidin, they realized that after that authority has been split into two. One is the temporal, the secular authority, which lies in the person of rulers, and you have the religious authority, which lies with the ulama. So the rulers, they need help when they rule. That's why the ruler, the king, we know today is the YDP Agung. He will need to appoint after general election. He will appoint a prime minister, and with his approval, the prime minister will appoint his cabinet of ministers. So this is a tradition that that we carry on, you know, from before, which is Malaysia is. Because when the British came in and colonized us, they didn't abolish the monarchy, but it's still alive. And this is a good thing for Muslims, because the rulers, they protect the interests of Islam and the Muslims. They are the ones who carry out these duties. And we pray to Allah that they never fail in this duty of theirs. And chapter 3 is on the art of the pen and function of secretaries. This is talking about government secretaries and their role in ensuring the proper working of the government. So the pen is indeed mightier than the sword, Hajah Maslina. So because through the pen, the Sultan issues orders, and these orders are carried out.
Mhm.
So if we can compare it with Republican countries such as the United States of America,
Yeah.
so when the president takes his solemn oath, and then
Mhm.
he begins to issue presidential orders and executive orders. And chapter 4 is on the magnanimity of kings, and Imam Ghazali brings some of the anecdotes. What is it the required quality for a king to become magnanimous?
Mhm.
And then he mentioned some anecdotes. Some of the Umayyad kings, they have princes, and then they continually observe their princes and train their princes to succeed them later on.
Yeah.
But there are also, and it shows that even though they say that it is said that the Umayyad kings, many of them were brutal, many of them were tyrannical, but it is also because the state of the people, there are some people who are unruly, therefore
Yeah. They need, yeah.
they need somebody who is, they only bow to people who can really bully them into
Mhm.
submission. That is
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
We are not judgmental, but what we present it as it is.
Yeah.
That happened during that time,
Mhm.
and we are in no position to judge them. But it says that brutal as they may, we read also their stories of kindness, how they use their wealth to really help poor people, build institutions to help people. And it is normal for them to, wherever they travel, they will carry sacks of gold and silver. And if you remember in one of those Piramli movies, and when the Sultan came, and the rich people come to a place, and then they will have like money, and then they will
Yeah.
throw it in the streets, and people will try and get those money. That is a modern interpretation. I imagine it must have been the case during that time. And also I mentioned that an Umayyad king, he observed that the prince was shortchanging his servants for a particular service. This prince gave him not a full dirham, but cuts it in half and give it to the servant. And because of that, the king says, "You will not be fit to become a king." So that is a criteria for
Yeah.
succession. So succession, he gives it to somebody else. And then Imam Ghazali brings aphorisms of sages, what we call hikam,
Mhm.
such as like the hikam of Ibn Atta'illah. These are words of wisdom. And also on akal, on intelligent persons. And the last chapter is on women and their good and bad points, because this is important, because the women are also half of the society.
Yeah.
They raise children, they raise people, and if they are good, then the society will become good,
Mhm.
and good rulers will rise from among them. And if they are bad, they will raise bad children, bad people. And like I said before, it will reflect later upon the society, when bad rulers will rise from among them. So I think that is sufficient to conclude our session,
Yeah.
Hajah Maslina.
Maybe later,
Yeah,
you mentioned about we as Muslim,
yeah,
we are, you said, relevant and on in any era,
yeah,
like ancient era and also current.
yeah.
So perhaps is it this book? Maybe is it relevant in modern times like today?
Yeah, it's always useful to have this kind of work. I mean, in the West, they also study ancient work. That is the sole reason for Orientalism. They wanted the West, when they want to study our great civilization, they go look into this kind of
Mhm.
works. And it is saddening to hear that, like what FRC Begley said, that many of this book of advice on rulers have yet to be translated
Mhm.
and looked upon by
Yeah.
our Muslims. I mean, modern young Muslims, because if we see the state of affairs of Muslims here, we are we are disunited. And there are some countries, poor Muslim countries, that
Yeah.
still needed help. And then globally, on a global level, we see also, there are also failures in global leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Look at countries which are having conflicts, having wars,
Yeah.
and countries which have which they rank among the highest in corruption index, for example, and their rulers couldn't do anything about it. I think it's high time that people who advise rulers or the rulers themselves to look at this kind of literatures as part of their reading repertoire. Not all of it can be implemented.
Yeah.
Imam Ghazali, not all of his fatwa
Yeah.
can be implemented today due to the conditions which are very different.
Yeah.
Different. Um, but certainly there are lessons that we can learn from
Mm-hmm.
this. This is for the same reason Al Quran has Surah Al Qasas,
Mm-hmm.
stories, and the
Yeah.
Quran has many stories inside there. The reason why God put the stories, so many stories in the Quran, is for Muslims to think,
Mm-hmm.
to first tafakkur, I mean to contemplate on the sources of the stories,
Yeah.
and also tadabbur, to think about the akibatul umur, the consequences of affairs.
Yeah.
uh, so when you act like the behavior of Fir'aun, for example, then you will end up like Fir'aun or
Mm-hmm.
Haman or Namrud, for example. These are the bad characters that have been presented in the Quran for us to ponder and reflect and take lessons from their misfortune in the end. So and Imam Ghazali provide us with many anecdotes. For example, the story of Ravishin,
Mm-hmm.
who was a corrupt Persian wazir, and he used to torture people. He takes. There's a story also about this fisherman who steal the fish of others, and he
Mm-hmm.
was instantly punished by God. His arm was bitten by the fish which he had stolen, and it became swollen,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, up to the point when he was looking for people, and then I think he met Khidir and Nabi Khidir, and then he was asking, how can you cure this hand, and then the person said you have to return
Yeah.
what's
What?
rightful to their rightful owners, and he did. He returned back to the fish, and it was revealed later on that God said, had he not returned to him, even if he cut off his limb, the gangrene will spread throughout his body, and God will punish him with an agonizing death. So that
Mm-hmm.
is the punishment for doing injustice unto others. And so
Yeah.
these kind of works, these kind of anecdotes are useful. And I don't mean only for limited for the rulers and people. They need also to learn this kind of things. If you are leaders of organizations, you need also to learn the ethical lessons that are contained in this book. And we like I said, we are at the very least, we are at least the ruler of the kingdom of our own body, and the lessons are no less useful. So I think that's it, Haja Maslina.
Yeah, it's very interesting
Yeah.
about this book today.
Mhm.
And thank you very much, Dr. Sni, for being with us today.
My genuine pleasure.
Yeah, about Nasihat Al-Muluk Al-Ghazali's Council for Rulers.
Yeah.
Then, inshallah, for next week, we will discuss about other books.
Inshallah.
Correct. Okay.
Right.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah.
Then stay tuned with us at IKIM Inspirasi Inforia Islami.